Now let's talk about 2025. Genesis is going to be in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and they're running the Colwell Center, the Curtis Colwell Center. That's like a 7,000 seat arena. A few days later, they're going to be in San Antonio, Texas, and they're doing like 2,000. That's a 2,000 seat arena. They've sold that one out before, and also later in Texas, they're going to El Paso in March. It looks like, and that's a 10,000 seater. Although it says on Google, it says it's 6,500 for wrestling. They're going to St. Joseph, Missouri. I don't know how big that one is, but I know that's a nice venue. They're doing that in March. In April, they're going to a 10,000 seater for Rebellion at the campus of almost said UFC at USC, the basketball arena there. That's a 10,000 seater, the Galen Center. And then they're running the freaking UBS Arena in New York City, which I believe is the home of the New York Islanders. I want to say it's the Islanders. That's where they play. That is a 17,000 seat arena. Last year, AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling ran that, and they did 11,000 people. Now, earlier this year, I said I was challenging them to go bigger. I said I wanted them to take some big swings. Guys, that isn't what I was talking about. So you might have taken a really big swing there, and I hope it pays off. But that seems like a scary proposition for them to be able to fill an arena like the UBS Arena that can hold up to 17,000 seats. I think Meltzer said that it might be like for pro wrestling, it might be 13,000, just depending on how you set it up. But that's a huge venue. What do you think about them taking these big swings next year?
It's definitely bigger than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I've never been at the USC Arena. For those who don't know, my wife and I were USC fans. We're actually we plan on going to see a women's basketball game within the next probably next month. We're trying to go, so I'm going to go check this arena out. Hopefully,
yeah.
We were watching a game on TV the other day, and it was a middle of the week game against one of these Christian universities. I mean, they beat them by like 100, and there weren't a lot of people there, so it's definitely one of those arenas they can get away with tarping off a good portion of it, and it still sounded okay. I mean, we could tell there was not a lot of people there. It still sounded okay. It does scare me because, like, you're watching these AEW shows, and as much as maybe not you like AEW sometimes, I've pretty much fallen off with it after 2 years ago. From the inception for the first 3 years, I thought it was the best wrestling show on TV. It wasn't my favorite, but I thought it was the best. And now I think it's like the worst. But you see it on TV, and even like as much as we clown it, they still have more people there than what TNA has. Yeah. It's just that TNA books better venues. But if you watch some of these clips, if you don't watch a show anymore, you watch the clips on YouTube, it sounds empty as shit. And they're talking, we got 2,000, 3,000 people there, which for AEW, it's really small, but that's still, that's a big crowd for TNA. Like, we're celebrating if they have 3,000 people there.
That's a home run for TNA, but AEW is doing it in basketball arenas, right?
Right.
So, but they did actually start, I believe it's starting this week. They actually ran a smaller venue, like a 5,000 seater, and they had a couple thousand people there. So this week's Dynamite actually looked really good on TV. The lights were brighter. You could see the crowd. The sound was better. The crowd was hotter. They were in Bumblefuck, Indiana, of all places, but they still were able to get a pretty decent sized crowd there. And it looks a lot better. So they're taking the strategy of like reducing their arena size to fit the demand, because that's what they had. It's like a supply and demand situation. They're booking these big arenas and they just couldn't fill them. So now they're just booking smaller ones. And I'm sure they were losing their ass on the live gate. But AEW is playing a little bit smarter. Is what TNA is doing smart?
I guess we're going to see, because the one thing is they've been booking some slightly bigger venues recently. And I've been scared about those. They've pulled it off,
They honestly, they've gotten bigger. It seems like they've been incrementally booking bigger and bigger arenas throughout 2024, and they've just been hitting each benchmark, right? So like they're like in the summer they were still doing like ECW Arena, and then that place in Chicago that they run, and then all of a sudden they decided, you know what, for Slammiversary, we're going to throw this on PCO's back. We're going to go to Montreal in a 5,000 seat arena and see what we can do. and they pulled off 3,500. That was the biggest crowd they had done in forever, right? And then so they got, screw it, we'll go ahead and try something big for Bound for Glory, and they book a 3,000 seat arena and they sell the damn thing out. To my shock, right? In fact,
Right.
I was so shocked that they actually sold 3,000 tickets at Slammiversary. I still am the only man alive that wears a Big Con t-shirt. I wore it tonight in honor of me having to eat shit one day. He doesn't actually have his own t-shirt, so I actually made him one.
Right.
And I
thought
sold
was
it
a
to
Bret Hart
myself.
shirt this entire time.
Yeah. Yeah, I sold it to myself. So it seems like they've been taking a little bit of chances here and there, which I actually think is pretty smart, right? Like they're not just going straight to the UBS arena. They're like working their way up there. But I think David Bixenspan's in the chat and he says, "Wait, TNA booked what?" Yes, David.
I laughed when I saw
They
that.
booked the UBS arena of all places for Slammiversary next year. I don't know how the hell they're going to fill that thing. I don't know what they're going to do. I think they're going to have to sign whatever big name free agents available. They're going to have to do some type of gimmick. They need to get Lethal Lockdown, Ultimate X, Elevation X. They need to bring in all of Japan and Mexico on this thing. They need to do something because that's going to be a tough one to sell.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they prove us wrong. I mean, they have to know what they're doing at this point. I would imagine they look at numbers and we're projecting, hey, we're setting these benchmarks, as you said, and we're doing this and this, so that, you know, they've got a graph, they've got a chart saying, hey, we're going this direction. We can do this. So, man, I hope.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that they're taking big swings. I was just like, God, I didn't mean that big, guys. Come on. But you know what? Like, go big or go home. They're going big. We do have the chat is lively tonight because you're here. And so I apologize, guys. I'm not able to get to everybody's chat. Eli Samuel Rosario has a question. With TNA running stadiums, brother, they're running arenas. Stadiums is like what AEW is doing for All In and what WWE is doing for Royal Rumble, like outdoor big stadiums. They're doing basketball arenas, but do you think they have a bigger distribution deal in place? Matt Hardy's been hinting at it for a while that TNA is actively working on a distribution deal. I've been hearing the same goddamn story for 5 years. Ever since they've been on Access, they've always been working on a new TV deal. And I gave up on it years ago. I happen to think they just like being on Access because they're never going to get fired. But it does seem like for them to book the UBS arena and for them to book a couple of 10,000 seaters, it does seem like they might have something up their sleeve.
Dude, I've only asked one question before about what was it you had me ask? It was in regard to Full Sail. Yeah, but I was just kind of hit with the no comment.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they have planned in regards to that, but in regard to like these distribution deals and stuff, I haven't really asked much about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. We've been hearing that forever. I did a podcast the other day and someone asked, do you think they'll ever get off Access TV? I'm like, I don't really know how, because I know they're doing good numbers for Access, but they're not doing like good numbers. I mean, there's nothing about their TV show that any network could be like, yeah, let's pick it up. I mean, we've seen NWA say, hey, we're getting a deal, and then these are smaller companies, but it falls through. MLW's like, hey, yo, we're getting this deal, falls through. Like, they're not getting the, you know what I'm saying? Like, I understand TNA has a little bit of a bigger audience, but it's not that much bigger of an audience. I would just imagine their conversations aren't that much different than MLW's conversation with a bigger network. Like, I have a real hard time. And we're seeing Rampage and Collision on a bigger network not do that good, you know?
No,
So
I think they were in like the low 100s over the weekend. And which is crazy because TNA on Access just like 2 or 3 weeks ago did 108,000, and Rampage, I think Rampage is like 125 and Collision is like 145, something like those numbers could be off by a little bit, but it's like they're not that far off, and TBS and TNT is in like twice the amount of homes as Access TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wild. So because people always say, well, it just needs to get in front of more eyes, but I think there's the TNA fan base feels that if it's in front of more eyes, that it's going to be doing 3, 4, 500,000. And when you're talking about, I know they're the B and C shows, but when AEW really does have a much bigger fan base, and they're not
Yeah.
hitting, I just cannot see TNA doing those numbers. Like, I think where they're at is just where they're at. I don't know. I would imagine their DVR numbers impact people who are watching TNA on demand. I would imagine those numbers have shot up quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's like baby steps. Like, I know they're working with NXT and all these things, but people have their TV habits already for the most part. And I don't,
the thing about TNA is they can't get people to regularly view their TV show because it's on a channel that nobody has, and nobody's really going to upgrade their cable package to get that channel. It's not even available on YouTube TV. That's what I have. So I actually watch through the app. Now the app works really good actually. Like it's like that's been like the big for me. Like them selling more tickets and their app actually being usable and working properly, like almost like 90% of the time. That's been a huge thing for me. But like there's just so much wrestling on TV. I don't think there's a demand for another major program on a bigger network. I just don't see the demand. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I do think it's possible that they think that they might have something coming up if they feel like they're running these shows. I think they're doing better tickets because Joe Hendry and the Hardy Boys got hot at the right time. Joe Hendry has a lot of social media support, and the Hardy Boys. If you put the Hardy Boys on a billboard and people like our age that watched them when we were teenagers, and the tickets are like $25, you're probably going to go and take your kids, right?
Yeah.
Like if the Hardy Boys are on like the local news and like, oh, wrestling's coming to town here in Bumblefuck, North Carolina, Fayetteville. It's like, oh, okay, I remember them from when I was a kid. I'll take the kids over there and watch that. The tickets are $10 for general admission. So I think that's a lot of it. So I hope they didn't overestimate their thing, but I applaud them big time. I'm not trying to crap on them. I'm just trying to have like a realistic outlook. I commend them for taking a big swing like this. I never thought that they would do it. And I never thought that they would accept my challenge of trying to sell 5,000 tickets in 2025, because that's something that they just have not done in forever. But now that they've accepted the challenge, I'm kind of worried that they might end up losing their ass a little bit. But fuck it, just take a big swing. Anthem's $1 billion corporation. Let them spend the money.
And I got to say this too. I think you have alluded to this before, talking to some people, but I've been to 2 TNA shows this year strictly because they came to Vegas, but Rebellion and Hard to Kill. And then I did the Snake Eyes tapings. I don't believe I did the TV tapings after Rebellion. No, I did. So I did the TV tapings for both. There's a lot of people in the crowd that do not follow TNA.
Yeah.
And I think you've said this before because some people have told you. There's conversations around me, even Rebellion. I think that's the one I was like front row, and then Hard to Kill, I think I was like third row. Even that close, there's people completely clueless. When I was third row for Hard to Kill, I don't know, this guy was texting in front of me, but he's holding his phone up kind of high so I could read it, and I could tell he knew nothing about TNA. He's like, oh, I'm give him a shot. There's a lot of bad comedy, and I just saw him like, but there's a lot of people there that don't watch it. So the Hardys, the Joe Hendrys of the world, they are kind of drawing them in. There's definitely a lot of casual fans,